The twin suns of Varela dipped low behind jagged mountains, casting long shadows over the mining colony. Dust swirled in the wind, catching the dying light like embers from a fading fire. In the streets of the capital, Kirla, families hurried toward the underground shelters. Children's faces, pale and wide-eyed, peeked from behind trembling parents. Every day since the Zarnathi arrived, hope had slipped further through their fingers like grains of crushed quartz. Elder Sareth stood on the balcony of the colony's command tower, his gaze fixed on the black void above. The sky was no longer the familiar tapestry of stars. Instead, it was a churning mass of alien warships, their silhouettes blotting out the constellations he once knew. The massive hive ship at the fleet's center pulsed with an eerie bioluminescence, its hull segmented like a colossal exoskeleton. To Sareth's people, peaceful artisans and miners, this was an unimaginable terror. Elder, a young officer called, voice strained but steady. The shields are failing. 2 more generators offline. We won't hold out much longer. Sareth nodded grimly. Prepare the evacuation orders for Sector 7. Civilians must move to the lower bunkers immediately. The officer hesitated. But the Zarnathi's ground forces are advancing faster than expected. We can't guarantee safe passage. Then we ensure they fight hard enough to buy time, Sareth replied, voice resolute. If no help comes, then we will stand or fall together. Inside the command center, holographic maps flickered, showing the progress of Zarnathi biodrones, tearing through mining outposts like locusts devouring crops. The colony's defenses were makeshift, old turret batteries, a handful of plasma cannons cobbled from mining equipment, and the stubborn spirit of a people unused to war. Outside, the sound of distant explosions echoed through the valley. Virelan soldiers, armed with lightweight pulse rifles, formed a ragged line along the perimeter, faces painted with a mixture of determination and despair. Among them, young Kurin gripped his weapon tightly, the barrel trembling in his hands. He was barely old enough to remember peace. Keep your eyes sharp, his sergeant whispered. They'll come through the eastern ridge any moment. Kurin swallowed, sweat mingling with the dust on his brow. The Zarnathi were rumored to communicate telepathically, hive minds linking their thoughts in perfect synchronization. How could any single soldier stand against such unity? Suddenly the sky flickered, a brief, strange distortion near the outer fleet. A ripple of static cut through the colony's communications. The command center's comm officer gasped. Elder, incoming signal. It's encrypted, but it's human. A stunned silence fell over the room. Humans were a legend, a ghost story, told among the stars, once fierce conquerors, now vanished from galactic politics for centuries. The Virelans had only heard of them in myths passed down through generations, fiery, unpredictable, and violent beyond measure. Patch it through, Sareth ordered. The garbled transmission crackled to life in the chamber. A rough metallic voice spoke in Old Standard Galactic, its tone calm but commanding. Hold fast. Help is coming. The room froze. Was it hope? Or a cruel trick of the war? Sareth's heart pounded. He had prayed for this moment in secret, but hearing it shattered the final vestiges of despair. Repeat the message, he commanded. The voice responded again, clearer this time. UHS Lancelot en route. We will arrive within 72 hours. Kurin's mouth went dry. 72 hours. An eternity, and yet the faintest spark of hope. Outside, the Zarnathi shifted. Their monstrous claws scratched against the rocky surface, and the hive ship pulsed brighter, as if sensing the sudden change. The war had only grown darker, and now the void itself might roar. As the first stars of night flickered above Virela, Elder Sareth looked to the heavens and whispered a prayer. Whatever came, next humanity was returning, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Far beyond the battered skies of Virela, in the depths of a swirling nebula cloaked by cosmic dust and glowing gas clouds, the UHS Lancelot waited. Its massive hull, scarred by decades of forgotten wars, blended almost invisibly into the swirling cosmic colors. Inside, the hum of power cores and the soft clatter of boots on metal decks filled the air, a warship alive, pulsing with purpose. Commodore Elira Reyes stood on the command bridge, eyes sharp and unyielding. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, her uniform pristine but worn from countless campaigns. She had not forgotten the price humanity paid to retreat from the Galactic stage centuries ago. But today, that history was behind her. Today, humanity's return would be remembered. The cryptic distress call had shattered decades of silence. For years, humanity had remained hidden beyond the Sol barrier, watching, preparing, waiting. The galaxy thought them extinct, or worse, irrelevant. But Reyes knew better. "Prepare to exit hyperspace," she ordered, voice steady, though her heart raced. "I want all systems green and ready, weapons hot, communications open. Commodore, we're receiving a full data feed from Varela," the communications officer reported. "Shields failing, civilian casualties increasing. The Zarnati fleet is overwhelming." Reyes nodded. "Then we don't waste time. They expect us to hesitate. They've forgotten what humans are capable of." Around her, the crew moved, with practiced precision. Engineers monitoring weapon systems, tactical officers plotting intercept courses, and soldiers readying boarding pods. This was a warship not just of steel and firepower, but of will. She glanced at the holographic display showing the isolated Varela colony, besieged and broken. The Zarnathi ships moved in perfect formation, their hive intelligence ruthless and brutal. "They think we won't come," Reyes muttered. "They're about to learn a hard lesson." On the outer hull, the ship's massive engines flared to life, blue-white plasma jets blazing through the nebula's mist. Sensors screamed as the ship tore through space, warping the fabric of the void around it. The stars twisted and stretched, then snapped back as the Lancelot burst out of hyperspace just kilometers from Varela's orbit. Back on Varela, the colony's command center erupted into action. The flickering holomap showed the sudden appearance of a massive silhouette. An ancient warship shaped like a predatory beast, glowing with cold, ruthless power. "Is it real?" Curran whispered, staring upward as the Lancelot hovered like a titan guarding them. Elder Sereth's face was pale, but his eyes burned with renewed fire. "Yes, it is real." The warship's powerful comm system boomed across all channels, drowning out the desperate static of the colony's failing systems. "This is Commodore Elira Reyes of the United Human Systems. Varela, you are not forgotten. Stand firm. We will not let the darkness claim you." The voice carried the weight of centuries, commanding, fearless, and resolute. Meanwhile, in the crowded Galactic Council chambers on distant Phaedros Prime, diplomats and ambassadors buzzed with alarm. News of humanity's sudden return spread like wildfire. Some saw it as salvation, others as a threat. Ambassador Keltarn of the Celyari species slammed his fist on the table. "This is reckless. Humanity vanished for a reason. They were too volatile, too dangerous. Their return will spark a war we cannot contain." Across the room, Ambassador Dira Valen of the Makari nodded thoughtfully. "Or perhaps they are exactly what the galaxy needs. The Zarnathi have grown bold in our absence. If humans can stop them, we should welcome the aid." Yet even as the debate raged, on Varela the people prepared for the coming battle. The arrival of the Lancelot was no guarantee of salvation. It was a beacon of defiance, a promise that humanity's brutal ingenuity had returned to the stars. Commodore Reyes studied the colony's data feeds. "Deploy drone squadrons to disrupt the Zarnathi's hive network," she commanded. "I want their coordination broken before we engage the main fleet." Her tactical officer blinked. "It's unprecedented. The Zarnathi hive mind is nearly impossible to disrupt." "Nothing is impossible," Reyes said, voice hardening. "Not when human lives are on the line." In the hangar bays, soldiers suited up. Heavy armor, advanced energy rifles, and tactical HUDs glowing in the dim light. Marines who had never seen the horrors of Varela trained relentlessly, knowing they were humanity's first message back to the galaxy. "We fight to protect the weak, no matter the cost." Outside the Lancelot's viewport, the void stretched infinitely. And from that infinite darkness, humanity's roar was about to echo once more. Deep within the obsidian halls of the Zarnathi flagship Kazthul, Queen Zalkesh paced restlessly. Her many limbs clicked sharply against the bioorganic floor, each movement radiating a cold, lethal grace. The pulsing glow of the hives. Core cast eerie patterns across her segmented carapace, the rhythm mirroring the steady drumbeat of battle. Her compound eyes flicked toward the tactical display, a swirling storm of movement around Varela. The tiny colony had been reduced to a shattered shell, yet the stubborn resistance of its inhabitants irritated her hive's sensibilities. This was supposed to be an easy conquest. Why do they still resist? She hissed in the clicking tongue of her species. Their pitiful defenses crumble like dust. Where is the final collapse? Her chief warlord, a hulking brute named Kralvor, bowed slightly. Queen, reports indicate interference from an unknown vessel, human in origin. Their weapons are unlike any we have faced. Their shields hold against our biolances. It is troubling. Zalkesh's many eyes narrowed. Humans, the long-vanished savages, they dare interfere in Zarnathi dominion, then they shall be crushed beneath our claws. Elsewhere on Virela, the ground trembled under the steady advance of bioengineered beasts, twisted, grotesque creatures, bred for war and destruction. The remaining Virelan defenders fought fiercely, their pulse rifles firing bursts of charged plasma, lighting the night in streaks of blue and green. Yet for every creature they felled, 2 more took its place. Kurin, ducked behind a crumbling wall, his heart pounding in his chest. Beside him, Sergeant Lyra barked orders directing squads to hold the eastern ridge. "They're coming!" Lyra shouted, just as a shrieking Zarnathi screeched overhead, its wings a blur. A winged assassin dropped behind their lines, claws extended, and the firefight erupted into chaos. Kurin felt the sting of plasma grazing his armor, smelled the sharp tang of scorched earth. The Zarnathi were ruthless, machine-like in their efficiency, yet utterly alien in their brutality. Suddenly, the comm crackled to life. "Kurin, come in. Virela command. Something's happening in orbit." He grabbed the communicator, voice shaking. "Speak. Look up." The void stirs. Kurin forced himself to stand, peering skyward. Against the ink-black backdrop, a glowing shape blazed into view, massive, metallic, and terrible. The UHS. Lancelot, an ancient warship older than any living Virelan, loomed like a god of war descending from the stars. For a moment, the ground seemed to still. Even the Zarnathi hesitated, their biodrones momentarily disoriented by the sudden appearance. In the depths of space, the Lancelot's turrets began to hum, charging to devastating power. Commodore Reyes stood on the bridge, her gaze locked, on the approaching hive fleet. "Target the flagship," she ordered. "Fire at will." The first salvo tore through the void, kinetic slugs piercing alien armor, glowing plasma bolts detonating in deadly arcs. The Zarnathi flagship screamed in agony as the ancient human weapons tore through its biohull. But Zalkesh was no fool. She roared, a deafening sound that echoed through the hive's corridors. "Release the swarm. Crush these invaders." From the flagship's belly, hundreds of biodrones swarmed into space, fast, lethal, and relentless. They surged toward the Lancelot, clawing and tearing at its hull. The warship's automated defenses sprang to life, lasers carving fiery arcs through the enemy ranks, but some drones breached the shields. Inside the Lancelot, alarms blared. Marines scrambled to repel boarding pods. Elira Reyes gritted her teeth. "Hold the line! Protect the reactors at all costs!" On Virela's surface, the battle grew fiercer. The Zarnathi, sensing their fleet under threat, unleashed desperate attacks. Kurin's squad fought tooth and nail. Every moment bought precious seconds for the Lancelot's crew to stabilize their assault. In the chaos, something unexpected happened. Human strike teams deployed boarding pods, plunging onto the Zarnathi flagship itself. Clad in powered armor and wielding weapons unfamiliar to their foes, they carved corridors of destruction through the hive's innards. Kurin watched in awe as strange figures moved with calculated fury. Humans, relentless and unyielding. "We may "Fight, Curran?" Sergeant Lara said beside him, her voice fierce. "Not just for survival, but for victory. Humans have come to show us how," Queen Zalkesh snarled, realizing this war was no longer a mere conquest. It was a reckoning, and the humans had just begun to roar. Space shattered with light and thunder. The UHS Lancelot loomed over Varela like an ancient colossus awakened from slumber. Its massive hull, blackened and scarred from centuries of battle, gleamed coldly beneath the twin suns' fading rays. Weapon turrets swiveled with mechanical precision, their barrels spitting arcs of brilliant blue fire that tore through the Zarnathi swarm. Inside the warship's bridge, Commodore Elira Reyes stood rigid, eyes locked on the chaos unfolding on the hollow map before her. The Zarnathi flagship writhed beneath a hailstorm of kinetic slugs and plasma fire, its bioorganic armor fracturing like brittle glass. "Target the swarm clusters near the eastern ridge," Reyes commanded, voice calm but fierce. "Priority: protect the evac corridors." Tactical officers scrambled. Massive drones burst into flame as railguns cut swaths through the alien ranks, breaking their formations and scattering the living missiles. The space around Varela burned with deadly light, a battlefield between machine, beast, and something far older, human ingenuity. Outside, boarding pods screamed through the void, hurling human marines into the heart of the enemy fleet. Their suits gleamed with layered armor, weapons humming with unfamiliar energy. The pods slammed against the Zarnathi hive ship's carapace and ruptured with thunderous explosions, flooding the interior with a flood of soldiers. Commodore Reyes watched, the feeds from her helmet cams, eyes narrowing. This is what they've been waiting for. On the surface, Curran and his squad pressed the attack, emboldened by the thunderous support overhead. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and scorched rock. Every pulse rifle shot echoed with renewed hope. "We hold the line," Sergeant Lara urged. "The humans are with us now." A piercing scream cut through the noise, the cry of a Zarnathi winged assassin diving toward the humans. Without hesitation, a squad of human marines raised their rifles and unleashed a torrent of charged bolts, shredding the creature in midair. Curran stared in disbelief. These strangers fought like gods forged from fire and steel. Back in orbit, the Lancelot's AI began coordinating an intricate dance of destruction. Swarms of drones equipped with EMP bursts zipped through the enemy ranks, disabling communication, arrays and severing the hive mind's control. "Disrupt their coordination," Reyes ordered. "Break their will." The flagship's walls quaked as explosions rocked its innards. Human boarding parties carved their way through corridors slick with alien fluids. Pulse grenades detonated, forcing the Zarnathi defenders to retreat or be consumed in flames. In one dimly lit chamber, Reyes's own squad encountered the dreaded Zarnathi warlord Kralavor. The towering beast snarled, claws slashing with terrifying speed. But the humans held firm. Advanced armor absorbed blows that would have shattered bones, and their rifles burned with precision. "Fall back," Reyes ordered, but not before landing a charged shot that staggered the warlord. The humans withdrew, dragging wounded with them. The battle raged on in space and shadow, a tempest fueled by desperation and resolve. Amid the fury, Reyes transmitted a message across the entire combat zone, her voice ringing clear and resolute. "Virela, you are not alone. We fight with you. Stand and live." On the ground, the Virelans rallied, their spirits rekindled by the promise in her words. Curran's squad pushed forward, reclaiming outposts inch by inch. The Zarnathi's advance slowed, faltered, then finally began to retreat in the face of overwhelming firepower. In the command center, Elder Sereth felt a tear slip down his cheek, not of sorrow, but relief. The impossible had happened. From the void above, the warship's roar echoed, a thunder that shook stars announcing that humanity was back, and it was ready to fight. The ground still trembled beneath the echoes of battle, but for the first time in weeks, the air over Varela carried a whisper of hope. Commodore Elira Reyes strode through the debris-strewn corridors of the battered Zarnathi hive ship, her boots clanging against slick organic floors. Around her, Squads of human Marines moved with deadly precision, clearing nests, securing vital data nodes, and retrieving prisoners. The Zarnathi defenders had learned one hard truth. Humans did not fight. Like other species. Captain Reyes, Lieutenant Margot called from a nearby comm terminal, eyes bright with excitement. We've captured a communication relay. It's linked to their hive mind. With the right hack, we could disrupt their entire network. Reyes considered the tactical advantage. Do it. Then we turn their own strength against them. Outside, the hive ship, the battle had shifted. No longer were the humans simply defending. They were leading a relentless counterattack. The UHS Lancelot unleashed wave after wave of drone strikes, tearing through Zarnathi fleets with brutal efficiency. Above Varela, human fighters danced among the wreckage, their plasma bursts lighting up the void like fireworks. On the planet's surface, Varelan resistance fighters trained alongside the humans. Kurin, now outfitted with a human pulse rifle and tactical HUD, followed Sergeant Lara as she instructed a squad in guerrilla tactics. Don't just shoot. Think, Lara urged. Use cover, flank, disrupt their patterns. They're fast but predictable if you know their hive mind weak spots. Kurin nodded, the heavy weight of the rifle unfamiliar but empowering. The battle had changed. He was no longer a terrified boy. He was part of something greater, a movement that burned with human tenacity. In a command tent illuminated by flickering holograms, Elder Sereth met with Commodore Reyes. The air was thick with smoke and tension, but their eyes held a mutual respect. You fight with a fury unlike any we have seen, Sereth admitted. Your methods, brutal, but effective. Reyes allowed herself a faint smile. We don't have the luxury of hesitation. Survival demands ruthlessness. If we don't break their will, they will break us. Sereth frowned. And what of the cost? Reyes's gaze hardened. War always comes at a cost. But if we fail here, every world under Zarnathi's shadow will suffer the same fate as Virela. The days that followed were a blur of fire and strategy. The humans' guerrilla tactics began to unravel the Zarnathi's tightly knit hive mind. Sabotage teams infiltrated biohubs, injecting viruses that scrambled neural signals. Resistance. Fighters ambushed supply convoys, turning the tide with unexpected strikes. Each victory came with sacrifice. Marines fell beside Kurin's squad. Virelan homes lay in ruins. But with every setback, the fire of resistance grew stronger. One evening, as the twin suns set behind the mountains, Kurin found himself staring at the horizon, pulse rifle slung over his shoulder. Do you think they'll really save us? He asked Lara quietly. She studied him with a steady gaze. They're not just saving us, they're teaching us how to stand on our own. That's the human way. Fight smart, fight hard, and never give up. Kurin swallowed hard, feeling a surge of determination. The humans had brought more than weapons. They had brought a new spirit. Back aboard the Lancelot, Commodore Reyes reviewed the latest intelligence. The Zarnathi hive was weakening, but still far from defeated. She turned to her tactical officer. Prepare a final strike on the hive's core. We end this now. The officer hesitated. It's heavily fortified. We risk everything. Reyes's eyes blazed. Then we risk everything to save millions. This ends today. As the warship prepared to unleash its most devastating weapon, Varela's skies ignited with fire and steel, an orchestra of destruction that promised to either free a world or consume it. The pulsating core of the Zarnathi hive ship throbbed with sinister life, an unholy fusion of organic tissue and alien technology. Corridors twisted like the innards of some monstrous beast, walls shifting with a strange living rhythm. Commodore Elira Reyes led her strike team through the labyrinth, every step echoing with purpose and danger. Behind her, squads of Marines moved like shadows, weapons raised and senses sharp. The air was thick with the scent of biofluid and decay, the faint hum of the hive's neural network a constant eerie drone in their ears. Keep tight, Reyes ordered, voice low but resolute. The hive's core controls their entire fleet. Take it out and we cripple their war machine. Lieutenant Margot worked feverishly on the portable console, hacking into the hive's neural matrix even as the team advanced. Almost there, she whispered. Just a few more seconds. Suddenly, the corridor ahead exploded in a shower of acidic blood and chitinous limbs. Zarnathi warriors surged forward, hulking, relentless, with claws dripping venom. The Marines opened fire, plasma bolts lighting up the darkness as the battle erupted. Reyes dove to the side, firing precise shots as her squad formed a defensive ring. The creatures were brutal, each strike met with savage counterattacks, but the humans' training and firepower held steady. Lieutenant status, Reyes shouted over the chaos. Got the hack. Initiating disruption sequence now. The hive groaned as neural links faltered. Lights flickered, corridors spasmed. The alien creatures screeched in confusion, their coordinated assault breaking, apart seizing the moment Reyes's team pushed forward, reaching a massive chamber at the ship's heart. The core, a writhing mass of bioengineered tissue glowing with eerie light, pulsed with terrifying energy. Set charges around the core, Reyes commanded. We have 5 minutes before the hive recalibrates. As the team worked, the ship convulsed violently. The Zarnathi flagship rocked under the relentless assault from the UHS Lancelot and the combined fleet circling Varela. Charges set, Margot reported, breathless. Timers active. Reyes's comm crackled suddenly. Curran's voice. Commodore, Varela's defenders are holding. The humans on the ground have turned the tide. Reyes allowed herself a brief smile. Good. Hold fast. We're almost done here. But the hive was not yet defeated. From the shadows, Queen Zalkesh appeared. Massive and terrible, her carapace gleaming with alien menace. You will not destroy us, she hissed, claws raised for the kill. Reyes squared her shoulders, rifle steady. We don't want to destroy you. We want to end your tyranny. The two charged, human against alien queen, a clash of wills as much as weapons. Lasers seared the air. Zalkesh's claws snapped dangerously close, but Reyes dodged with practiced agility, firing bursts that hammered the queen's armored shell. The battle was brutal and fast, a deadly dance beneath the throbbing heart of the hive. Finally, with a well-placed grenade, Reyes staggered the queen, forcing her to retreat into the shadows. No time, Reyes warned. We finish this now! She sprinted to the detonation panel, activating the charges just as the hive's core began to convulse violently. Everyone out, she shouted. Explosions ripped through the ship's core, a cataclysmic implosion that shattered the hive from within. The flagship screamed as its life support systems failed and the neural link collapsed. Outside, the Lancelot and allied vessels unleashed a final barrage, obliterating the flagship in a blazing supernova of debris. Back, on Varela, the ground trembled not from fear but relief. The Zarnathi swarm faltered, their biodrones ceasing attack and retreating in confusion. Curran lowered his pulse rifle, exhaustion washing over him. It's over. Isn't it? Sareth stepped beside him, eyes on the distant stars. For now. But the galaxy has many battles yet to fight. Commodore Reyes transmitted one last message to the battered colony. Varela is free. Humanity stands with you, and we will not falter. In the dark reaches of space, amid the ruins of a shattered hive, the echo of humanity's return roared across the void. Part 7. A New Dawn Rising. The smoke still hung heavy over Varela's scarred surface, but a fragile calm had settled. The last echoes of Zarnathi war cries faded into the winds, replaced by the tentative hum of repair drones and whispered prayers of relief. Curran walked among the ruins of his once thriving village, his pulse rifle slung loosely across his back. The destruction was immense, homes reduced to rubble, fields scorched, but the spirit of his people was unbroken. Children clung to their parents and survivors tended the wounded, all under the watchful eyes of human Marines who now moved among them as both protectors and teachers. Tomorrow, we begin rebuilding, Sergeant Lara told him, her voice steady, despite the exhaustion shadowing her features. And we fight to ensure this never happens again. Curran nodded, the weight of the fight still heavy on his shoulders. But somewhere deep inside, a fire burned, a fierce, unyielding spark of hope. Meanwhile, aboard the UHS Lancelot, Commodore Elira Reyes convened a council of Allied commanders. The battle for Varela was won, but the war for the galaxy's future was just beginning. Ambassadors from various species gathered, some wary, others openly grateful. The return of humanity, long thought extinct or irrelevant, had shaken the political landscape to its core. "We have shown strength," Reyes said, voice carrying the weight of command. "But strength alone will not hold peace. We must build alliances, foster trust, and prepare for the threats yet to come." Elder Sareth stood beside her, his calm presence a reminder of the stakes involved. The Zarnathi are but one shadow, among many. The galaxy's darkness is deep. In the days that followed, human engineers worked alongside Virulon scientists, repairing infrastructure and sharing technology. The humans' brutal efficiency was tempered by unexpected compassion, willingness to listen and learn. Curran watched as children were given new lessons, not only in survival but in hope. The humans' presence was more than military aid. It was a promise. One evening, beneath the twin moons, Curran found himself beside Commodore Reyes. The stars above shimmered with cold beauty, a vast canvas of possibilities. "You've changed. Everything," he said quietly. Reyes smiled, a rare softness in her eyes. "We never left. We only waited for the right moment. Will you stay?" "For as long as we're needed," she replied. "The galaxy needs to know humans are back and that we fight for all who cannot fight for themselves." Far beyond Varela on the galactic stage, the ripples of this conflict stirred new currents. Alliances formed in whispered halls and old rivalries simmered anew. The return of humanity had tipped the scales, promising a future shaped by fire, courage, and unyielding will. As dawn broke over Varela, the colony began to heal, not just its wounds but its hope. And in the vast expanse of space, the human warship Lancelot roared once more, a beacon for all who dared to defy the darkness. The galaxy did not forget the roar of the UHS Lancelot. News of the human warship's sudden and fierce arrival at Varela spread like wildfire through the stars. Across countless worlds, some oppressed, some indifferent, the echoes of humanity's return stirred long-dormant hope and dread in equal measure. Commodore Elira Reyes stood on the bridge of the Lancelot, the hum of the ship's core a steady heartbeat beneath her feet. Outside the massive viewport, stars streaked past in silent procession as the warship prepared for its next mission. "Set course for the Drakari system," Reyes ordered, voice calm but commanding. "Intelligence. Reports increased Zarnathi activity there. We move to intercept before they strike again." Her crew responded with efficient precision, the ship vibrating with the quiet power of ancient engines rekindled after years of silence. Nearby, Curran stood in the observation lounge, gazing out at the endless expanse of space. He was no longer the frightened boy who had first seen the Zarnathi hordes descend upon his homeworld. He had become a warrior, a symbol of resistance and unity between his people and the humans. Sergeant Lara joined him, her expression softer than usual. "You've come a long way, Curran." He smiled faintly. "And it feels like just the beginning." Across the ship, scientists and engineers labored on integrating human and Varellan technologies, forging new weapons and shields that combined the best of both worlds. Diplomats held tense meetings with allied species, each wary but united by a common enemy and the promise of a new alliance. Yet, despite the victories, Commodore Reyes knew the war was far from over. "Humanity's return," she mused aloud, to her trusted advisors, "is not just about reclaiming lost ground. It's about reminding the galaxy that the fiercest warriors can come from the unlikeliest places, and that hope can ignite even in the darkest void." Suddenly, an alert blinked across the tactical console. An incoming transmission marked, "Urgent from Varela." Reyes tapped the comm. "This is Commodore Reyes, go ahead." The voice crackled through, tense but controlled. "Commodore, this is Elder Sareth. We have detected unusual energy readings near Varela's outer moons. Possible remnants of Zarnathi biotech. It may be a beacon, or worse." Reyes's eyes narrowed. Prepare a reconnaissance team, we can't afford surprises. As the Lancelot adjusted course, Corin felt a familiar thrill of purpose. This was more than a battle. It was a chance to carve a new legacy for his people, for humanity, and for the countless worlds caught in the shadows. We fight because we must, he said quietly, because freedom isn't given, it's taken. Sergeant Lara clapped him on the shoulder. And because we're not alone anymore. As the warship slipped into the black, its engines roaring like thunder, the galaxy watched and waited. The era of humanity's fierce return had begun, and with it, a new chapter in the endless fight for survival and hope among the stars. The end.